Beneath the waves, hidden from satellite surveillance and radar detection, prowls America's most lethal deterrent against global annihilation. These steel leviathans, armed with enough firepower to reshape continents, represent the ultimate insurance policy in an uncertain world. Today, we're diving deep into the classified world of nuclear submarines, revealing how these underwater titans operate, what makes them nearly impossible to destroy, and why they remain humanity's most terrifying yet essential guardians of peace. Welcome to IntelX, where we decode the world's most complex military systems. If you're fascinated by cutting-edge defense technology and the hidden forces that shape global security, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Picture this. Somewhere in the dark abyss of the North Atlantic, a vessel longer than a football field glides silently through frigid waters. Inside its titanium hull, over 100 sailors live in near-total isolation, their existence erased from the outside world for months at a time. These aren't ordinary warships, they're mobile nuclear arsenals, each carrying destruction equivalent to thousands of Hiroshima bombs. When American nuclear submarines reposition closer to adversarial waters, it sends shockwaves through diplomatic channels. The strategic deployment of these underwater fortresses near Russian territorial boundaries represents a calculated message, a reminder that even in the aftermath of a catastrophic first strike, retaliation remains inevitable and devastating. These movements place American submarine-launched ballistic missiles within optimal striking range of critical Russian infrastructure. Command bunkers buried deep beneath the Ural Mountains, naval bases along the Arctic coastline, and strategic weapons facilities scattered across the vast Siberian X-Bay. But how exactly does this silent deterrent system function? To understand submarine warfare, we must first comprehend America's nuclear triad, a three-pronged doomsday architecture designed to ensure that no surprise attack could ever eliminate the nation's ability to strike back. This doctrine divides nuclear capability across three independent delivery systems, creating redundancy that makes complete destruction impossible. The first pillar consists of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, stationary giants buried in reinforced silos across the American heartland, ready to launch within minutes of receiving authenticated orders. The second pillar takes to the skies. Strategic bombers capable of delivering nuclear payloads or cruise missiles, offering flexibility and the crucial ability to recall weapons mid-flight if tensions de-escalate. But it's the third pillar that truly embodies invincibility, the submarine-launched ballistic missile platform. These underwater behemoths, officially designated as SSBNs or colloquially known as boomers, form the backbone of America's second strike capability. Unlike fixed missile silos that enemies can target or bombers that require airfields, submarines vanish into the ocean's depths, becoming ghosts that haunt the nightmares of adversarial military planners. The genius of submarine-based nuclear deterrence lies not in aggressive posturing, but in guaranteed survival. Even if enemy missiles obliterated every American city, military base, and command center in a coordinated first strike, enough submarines would remain operational beneath the waves to unleash apocalyptic retaliation. This mathematical certainty, this guarantee of mutual destruction, creates a psychological barrier that makes nuclear war unthinkable. These vessels don't prowl the seas waiting to strike first. Instead, they patrol in patterns so unpredictable that no adversary can plot their locations with certainty. Powered by nuclear reactors that require refueling only once every 2 decades, these submarines can remain submerged for 2 to 3 months continuously, limited only by the finite supply of food their crews can consume. Deploying from heavily fortified bases like Kings Bay, Georgia, and Bangor, Washington, these submarines slip into international waters and disappear into carefully calculated patrol zones. Their hunting grounds typically span the North Atlantic, the Arctic Ocean near Russian territories, and the North Pacific, all positioned within missile range of high-value targets yet far enough to remain virtually undetectable. The secrecy surrounding their exact locations forms the cornerstone of their effectiveness. Russia's most sophisticated anti-submarine warfare systems struggle to track these silent predators, which employ every conceivable stealth technology to avoid detection. Communication with surface command occurs rarely and only through highly encrypted, nearly untraceable transmissions that maintain operational security while preserving the chain of command. This strategic ambiguity occasionally gives way to deliberate signaling during moments of extreme geopolitical crisis. In August 2025, following explicit nuclear threats from Rus, Science leadership, President Trump publicly announced the forward deployment of 2 additional submarines closer to Russian waters. While the operational reality likely involved minimal tactical changes, these vessels were probably already nearby. The political messaging proved unmistakable. America's underwater arsenal remained poised, invisible, and ready. Such announcements serve dual purposes. They reassure allies of American commitment to their defense while simultaneously reminding adversaries that escalation carries unacceptable consequences. The submarines themselves become chess pieces in a deadly game where perception matters as much as capability. Let's examine the floating fortress at the heart of this strategy, the Ohio-class submarine. Each of these underwater juggernauts carries up to 20 Trident II missiles, representing the pinnacle of submarine-launched ballistic missile technology. But these aren't simple weapons. Each Trident missile can deploy multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, meaning a single missile can strike several different locations simultaneously with pinpoint accuracy. Do the mathematics. 20 missiles, each potentially carrying multiple nuclear warheads, all capable of independent targeting. A single Ohio-class submarine possesses the destructive capacity to eliminate dozens of cities, military installations, and command centers in a coordinated strike. Multiply that by the number of submarines on patrol at any given moment, and you begin to comprehend the sheer magnitude of underwater nuclear capability constantly prowling beneath the surface. Should nuclear war erupt, submarine commanders wouldn't act on impulse or individual judgment. They would await authenticated launch codes, cryptographic instructions verified through multiple redundant systems to prevent accidental or unauthorized weapons release. Once those codes arrive and verification completes, missiles could launch from beneath the waves, breaking the surface and accelerating toward their predetermined targets within moments. Flight times vary based on distance, but modern submarine-launched ballistic missiles can reach targets thousands of miles away in less than 30 minutes. For targets closer to patrol zones, that window shrinks to mere minutes. Too fast for meaningful defense, too quick for diplomatic intervention. American nuclear targeting philosophy follows what strategists call a counterforce approach, prioritizing military and command infrastructure over civilian population centers. In practice, this means Russian missile silos become primary targets, followed by submarine bases, strategic bomber airfields, nuclear weapons storage facilities, and command and control bunkers from which leadership might coordinate a war. This targeting doctrine serves both practical and ethical purposes. Destroying an adversary's ability to continue fighting reduces the duration and intensity of nuclear exchange, theoretically limiting casualties. Simultaneously, it maintains the moral high ground by avoiding deliberate civilian targeting, even in the context of nuclear warfare. However, American policy explicitly maintains that retaliation, not preemptive IKES, drives nuclear strategy. First-use scenarios exist only in the most extreme circumstances, when intelligence reveals an imminent, verified attack about to be launched, or when conventional forces face complete annihilation and nuclear weapons become the only means to prevent catastrophic military defeat. While Ohio-class submarines carry the strategic nuclear arsenal, attack submarines like the Virginia-class perform the tactical missions that maintain day-to-day underwater dominance. Developed during the 1990s as a more cost-effective alternative to the extraordinarily expensive Seawolf class, the Virginia-class boats balance capability with fiscal reality. Consider the economics. A single Seawolf submarine commands a price tag approaching $9 billion when adjusted for inflation. The Virginia-class, while still expensive at approximately $4 billion per unit, delivers comparable capability at half the cost. By comparison, Russia's Yasin-class submarines cost roughly $1.8 billion, a reminder that American defense spending dwarfs nearly every competitor. The Navy initially planned 66 Virginia-class submarines, though only 22 have reached completion so far. These vessels represent cutting-edge underwater warfare technology, incorporating lessons learned from decades of Cold War submarine operations. The latest Virginia-class variants stretch 460 feet in length. Imagine 4 basketball courts placed end-to-end, then submerge that entire structure. The beam measures 35 feet across, creating internal volume sufficient to accommodate 80 full-size buses stacked within the hull. This isn't just impressive engineering, it's a testament to the massive infrastructure required to operate underwater for extended periods. For perspective, compare the Virginia-class to historical submarines. German U-boats from World War II appear almost toy-like by comparison. Even Russia's formidable Yasen-class attack submarines seem modest when placed alongside the Virginia. And then there's the Typhoon class, Russia's Cold War monster still in service today, representing the largest submarines ever constructed. The Virginia-class displaces over 10,200 tons, equivalent to the weight of 41 Air Force One aircraft. Yet despite this enormous mass, these submarines achieve speeds exceeding 25 knots, 46 kilometers per hour, while operating at depths reaching 800 feet beneath the surface. And because nuclear reactors power them, their operational range is essentially unlimited, constrained only by crew endurance and provisions. Imagine navigating through absolute darkness where light cannot penetrate, where the slightest sound travels for miles, and where enemy vessels hunt you as you hunt them. Survival in this environment demands sophisticated sensor systems that transform acoustic data into tactical awareness. The Virginia-class employs a conformal large-aperture sonar array, essentially a sophisticated listening system that wraps around portions of the hull. This system operates in both active and passive modes, each serving distinct purposes. Active sonar functions like underwater radar. The submarine emits powerful sound pulses that propagate through the water, reflect off distant objects, and return to sensors. By calculating the time delay between emission and return, onboard computers instantly determine range, bearing, and relative motion of detected contacts. However, active sonar betrays the submarine's position, announcing its presence to anyone capable of detecting the transmission. Passive sonar, by contrast, simply listens. The Virginia-class incorporates advanced passive arrays capable of detecting enemy submarines, surface vessels, and even mapping underwater terrain and minefield locations. Additional sonar systems mounted along the hull flanks and extending forward on boom arrays provide comprehensive three-dimensional acoustic awareness, creating a detailed picture of the surrounding underwater battlefield. Mounted forward just behind the sonar dome sit the Virginia payload tubes, vertical launch systems capable of deploying cruise missiles while remaining submerged. Each tube houses 6 weapons, and the launch sequence represents a masterpiece of engineering precision. First, the submarine rises to the prescribed depth, deep enough to remain concealed but shallow enough for safe missile ejection. External hatches open, breaking protective seals that maintain hull integrity. High-pressure compressed air floods the launch tubes, and pneumatic force ejects missiles violently upward through the water column. As missile tips breach the surface, rocket boosters ignite, propelling the weapons skyward while discarding spent booster sections. Once clear of the water and climbing through atmosphere, the main engine engages. Wings deploy, transforming what emerged as a waterborne projectile into a nimble cruise missile capable of navigating at low altitude toward targets hundreds of miles distant. Rising from the Virginia's hull, the sail contains the nerve center for surface operations. At its apex sits the bridge, a small platform where officers can stand during surface transits, exposed to wind and spray, but gaining visual awareness impossible from below. Modern Virginia-class submarines employ electronic masts rather than traditional periscopes, sensors mounted on extendable masts that transmit high-definition imagery to control room displays. Communication masts provide encrypted data links to satellite networks, while the snorkel mast allows diesel generators to operate while submerged, drawing air from the surface. The submarine high data rate system provides satellite connectivity, though this represents no ordinary internet connection. Military-grade encryption protects every byte of transmitted data, ensuring adversaries cannot intercept communications or triangulate submarine positions based on signal emissions. Below decks, the control room divides into specialized sections, each staffed by technicians whose vigilance determines mission success or catastrophic failure. Ship control manages depth, speed, and navigation. The sonar department, employing more personnel than any other section, serves as the submarine's primary sensory system, detecting threats and opportunities in the acoustic realm. The photonics and navigation station links directly to the sail's electronic masts, providing commanders with visual awareness of surface conditions. Nearby, the radio room maintains encrypted communications with Fleet Command, while the Special Operations section coordinates any embarked SEAL teams or intelligence personnel. Finally, the Combat Control Center manages all weapons systems, both torpedoes for close-range engagements and cruise missiles for standoff strikes. When submarines engage enemy vessels in close quarters, torpedoes become the weapon of choice. These self-propelled underwater missiles represent elegant solutions to the complex problem of striking moving targets in three-dimensional fluid environments. Modern torpedoes begin their journey propelled by compressed air, accelerating rapidly away from the launch tube. A piston engine with propellers drives the weapon toward its target at speeds exceeding 32 knots, faster than most surface ships can evade. A guidance wire trails behind, maintaining connection with the submarine's fire control system, allowing real-time course corrections based on updated target information. As the torpedo closes on its prey, it severs the guidance wire and activates onboard sonar for terminal homing. This autonomous final phase ensures that even if the target maneuvers, the weapon adapts, hunting with mechanical persistence. Should initial approach fail, many torpedoes possess search patterns, circling back to reacquire and re-engage targets that evaded the first pass. Each carries an explosive charge equivalent to 1,200 pounds of TNT, sufficient to tear open hulls and send ships to the bottom within minutes. Newer designs incorporate supercavitation technology, creating gas bubbles that reduce water friction and enable unprecedented underwater velocities that make evasion nearly impossible. Beyond weapons and sensors lies the human dimension, the sailors who endure months of isolation in spaces measuring mere feet across. The upper decks house berthing compartments with approximately 119 permanent bunks, stacked in tight rows where privacy becomes a luxury and personal space essentially non-existent. Below the sleeping quarters sits the galley, submarine parlance for the kitchen, where culinary specialists work miracles with limited ingredients and storage. Adjacent to food preparation, the wardroom serves as combination dining facility and conference room, where crews share meals and officers conduct operational briefings. Moving aft, the Virginia payload module represents a recent upgrade, adding 4 large-diameter tubes capable of housing 7 Tomahawk cruise missiles each, 28 additional weapons that dramatically increase the submarine's tactical flexibility and strike capacity. At the submarine's core beats its nuclear reactor, an engineering marvel that transforms atomic physics into practical propulsion. And understanding this system requires glimpsing the elegant simplicity hidden within apparent complexity. A submarine nuclear reactor contains 3 essential components working in precise harmony. First, fuel elements, typically uranium-235 or uranium-238, compressed into sealed rods that vary in number based on reactor size. Second, a moderator, usually water, which controls neutron velocity and maintains stable reaction rates. Third, control rods composed of neutron-absorbing materials that regulate the entire process. The fission process begins by bombarding uranium atoms with neutrons. Each successful split releases 2 or 3 additional neutrons, which then impact neighboring uranium atoms, triggering further fissions in an exponentially growing chain reaction. Left uncontrolled, this process escalates catastrophically, the principle behind nuclear weapons. But submarine reactors harness this power through precise regulation. Control rods, when lowered into the reactor core, absorb excess neutrons, preventing runaway reactions. Raising rods slightly accelerates the reaction. Lowering them more deeply slows or stops it entirely. This delicate balance maintains steady energy output sufficient for propulsion while preventing dangerous overheating. The practical application transforms nuclear energy into forward motion through multiple engineering stages. The reactor heats water to 320 degrees Celsius, well beyond normal boiling points, but kept liquid by extreme pressure maintained throughout the primary cooling loop. This superheated water never contacts the ocean. Instead, it flows through heat exchangers within steam generators. Secondary water systems passing through these generators flash into high-pressure steam without ever mixing with potentially radioactive primary coolant. This steam then drives massive turbines, spinning them at thousands of revolutions per minute. The turbines connect through reduction gears to the main shaft, which in turn rotates the propeller, driving the submarine through water with enough force to overcome its enormous displacement. After passing through turbines, spent steam flows into condensers, where it returns to liquid form and cycles back into steam generators, repeating the process indefinitely. This closed-loop system extracts maximum energy from the nuclear fuel while minimizing waste and environmental exposure. The result? Nearly unlimited endurance. 20 years between refueling cycles, with operational limitations imposed solely by food supplies and crew endurance rather than fuel constraints. This capability transforms submarines into genuinely independent platforms, able to patrol for months without support and strike with no warning. The final engineering challenge involves controlling depth, descending into the abyss, and returning safely to surface. Submarines accomplish this through ballast tank systems distributed throughout the hull, typically positioned forward, amidships, and aft. Each tank features flood ports at the bottom and air valves at the top. Submerged, the submarine opens flood ports, allowing seawater to fill the tanks and increase overall density. As tanks fill progressively from bow to stern, the submarine angles downward and begins its descent, eventually achieving neutral buoyancy at the desired depth. Surfacing reverses the process. High-pressure air pumps into ballast tanks, forcing water out through flood ports. As tanks empty, buoyancy increases, and the submarine rises toward the surface through simple physics. Every fluid and gas, in the presence of gravity, exerts upward force proportional to displaced volume. But submarines require more than simple depth control. They need three-dimensional maneuverability. Rudders mounted vertically on the stern enable left and right turns, while horizontal elevators control pitch angle. Forward dive planes, retractable to reduce noise signatures, provide additional pitch control, allowing submarines to maintain specific depth angles while moving or hovering. These technological marvels, these silent sentinels prowling beneath storm-tossed waves, represent both humanity's greatest fear and perhaps its most reliable guarantee of continued existence. The paradox of nuclear deterrence rests on a simple truth. Weapons too terrible to use become tools to prevent war itself. Every day, somewhere in the world's oceans, American submarines maintain their lonely vigil. Their crews sacrifice months away from families, living in artificial environments where sunlight becomes memory and personal space a distant luxury. They train endlessly for a mission they hope never to execute, carrying weapons they pray never to launch. Yet their presence, unseen, unheard, but always assumed, creates the psychological barrier that makes nuclear war unthinkable. Adversaries cannot strike first without certainty of devastating retaliation. That certainty, maintained by these underwater guardians, preserves an uneasy peace in a world still armed with weapons capable of ending civilization. This is IntelX, where we decode the systems that shape our world. We've created this entire documentary through hundreds of hours of research and original animation, working with a small dedicated team to bring you content found nowhere else. If you found this deep dive valuable, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have more groundbreaking defense analysis coming soon.